Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to Face to Face. I'm your host, Dennis Ward. Our guest this week is a Metis kid from small town Manitoba who also happens to have his name on the Stanley Cup. He's an Olympic gold medalist, a world junior champion, and now an expert in the field of relational trauma. It's an absolute pleasure for me to welcome to Face Theo Fleury. Theo, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the show this week. As I mentioned, you enjoyed some huge moments during your hockey career. In addition to what I just mentioned, you also had numerous all-star appearances, more than 1,000 points over your career. Just wondering what you see as some of your high points during your career as an NHL player.
Well, I think you mentioned the majority of them, but I think more importantly was the fact that, you know, for many years, a lot of people said that I wouldn't play one game in the National Hockey League, and you know I was able to play 15 seasons and be a part of some amazing moments in hockey. You know, starting with the World Junior, Stanley Cup, you know, and then numerous opportunities to play for Canada at the World Championships and World Cups of hockey, Canada Cups, and that kind of stuff, and then sort of finishing off with a gold medal was, you know, pretty special, pretty spectacular, and you know, being an Aboriginal person too, you know, I don't know how many Aboriginal people have won gold medals representing Canada, and so, you know, that's kind of a cool distinction to sort of have, but yeah, I was very lucky and very grateful for the career that I had, and you know, like I said, I played with a lot of great hockey players, including, you know, the very best of our era, you know, Gretzky, Messier, Mario, Joe Sakic, Stevie Y, all those guys. So it was fun to be around those guys and to learn about leadership and you know, and what it takes to be great.
You mentioned some of those greats, and yourself having won a cup and a gold medal and a World Junior Championship. That's a pretty elite group as well. What was it like facing that adversity over your career to see some of those highs?
Yeah, well, I think more than anything else, I think it's a reflection of playing with great players who are all focused, who are all, you know, realize the end goal and what it takes leading up to the end goal, which is, you know, which is winning. And you know, when I went to Calgary in 1989, you know, I couldn't have been mentored by a better group of guys, you know, from top to bottom. You know, you had guys like Lanny McDonald, Jim Poplinski, Tim Hunter, and then guys like Gilmore, Neuendijk, Roberts, Joel Otto, Jamie McCowan, you know, the list just goes on. And so to be, you know, a young guy who's a rookie sort of trying to find his way and become a full-time National Hockey League player, it was amazing to be around quality people like those guys, and they taught me taught me about being a professional hockey player, what it takes, and I think what's more cool about that group is that not only were they great hockey players, but I think they were better people, and to be around a group of people like that, you know, it just makes you better all the way around.
Almost sounds like an all-star team now when you think of the players that were on that team at that time.
Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, I think probably there's 7 or 8 of us who'll be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So that says a lot about, you know, the quality of players and the quality of people that we had on that team.
Theo, during your 15 seasons, are there any low points on the ice that really stick out for you?
Well, I think every year your goal is to win the Stanley Cup, and when you don't accomplish that, that's a low point, you know, and I didn't realize how important it was winning that Stanley Cup early on in my career, because, you know, I think the closest I got after that was when I went to Colorado and we lost Game 7 to Dallas, and Dallas ended up, you know, beating Buffalo in the Stanley Cup final. So when you're young, you think, oh yeah, this is easy, and we'll be doing it, a few more times. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But yeah, you really appreciate those times and those moments and those opportunities that you had to win. And like I said, I was very fortunate to be on a World Junior team, Stanley Cup team, Canada Cup team, and and topping it all off, being at the Olympics in 2002 was pretty incredible.
As somebody myself who comes from a small town, I've read about how this impacted you. What was the move to New York City like for yourself, having grown up in a small Manitoba town, in small Saskatchewan?
Yeah, well, I thought I was ready and able to handle the pressure of playing in a big, huge market such as New York, and I tried to take a bite out of the Big Apple, and it took a huge bite out of me. But the organization is an amazing organization. I don't think in my career I was treated better as a player in New York, and met lots of great people there who were part of the team, and feel badly that things didn't turn out the way that they probably should have, but hockey's a tough sport, and it's hard to win in the NHL, and you don't necessarily buy winning teams or buy championships, and there was a lot of frustrating times. There was a lot of disappointment, but I think overall I look back on my time in New York as an incredible experience. I was there for 9/11, and saw how incredibly resilient people are and how they rally around each other, and I love the fast pace of New York, and the people there were in your face, quite abrasive kind of people. It was interesting to to be a part of that, and then putting on the red, white, and blue of the New York Rangers was pretty cool too. The original 6 team with a lot of history, and then playing every night in Madison Square Garden, where some of the greatest events, not only in the hockey world, but Muhammad Ali fought there. The Rolling Stones played several sold-out shows there, and so yeah, it was definitely an experience that I look back with a lot of really cool memories.
Now, how about off the ice in terms of highs and lows for yourself?
Well, I think that the work that I do now, is all trauma, mental health, and addiction-based stuff, and I struggled for many years with my own trauma and mental health and addiction issues, and ultimately it ended my career in the NHL. But I look back on all those experiences, and it sort of set me up for what I'm doing today, and I'm very fortunate, very grateful to be able to be in this position now, and living a sober life, and contributing to what I think is probably the biggest epidemic on the planet now, is something that I get excited about, and it motivates me, and I love being around and helping people who have had the same experiences such as myself.
And I will definitely want us to get into that work, but was there a turning point for you that made you turn the page on that and bring you to where you are today?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that probably about 14 years ago, I had a fully loaded pistol in my mouth, ready to pull the trigger and end my life. But it wasn't that I wanted to die. It was the fact that I was completely exhausted from living in emotional pain and suffering for the majority of my life, and I tried everything on the planet to sort of rid myself of the pain, and that's where that sort of took me, and that was that day that I didn't pull the trigger. I think that was the day that I started down this road, and I started down this path of healing and self-discovery and all these things. And so, yeah, that would probably be the lowest point, of my life.
Theo, we're, like I said, going to talk about the work you do today. We've just got to step aside for a quick break, and then we'll be back with more with Theo Fleury here on Face to Face.
If a story is uncomfortable, would you change it? No, you wouldn't, because there's no power in holding back. Stories have the power to change lives, so true storytellers uncover every side of hunger, of families, water, shelter, and health. So we're going to tell your stories every day until issues transform and our communities transform with them.
Welcome back to Face to Face. Our guest this week is Theo Fleury, a hockey hero, author, musician, and expert in the field of relational trauma. Theo, again, thanks for joining us. In October 2009, you released your autobiography, and I guess a little on, was that a tough process going through putting out that book?
Yes and no. I think initially when I released the book, there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear, and probably because I didn't know how the world was going to react to what was in the book, and that quickly changed, because at the very first book signing, I didn't have a lot of personal expectations for the book. I didn't think anybody was going to read it. I didn't think anybody would show up at the book signings. And I show up at this book signing in Toronto, and when I arrived there, there's 400 people standing in line. I'm like, why are they, like, what are these people doing here? So I start signing books. I spot a guy out of the corner of my eye, and he's got my book clutched against his chest, and his face is sort of buried in the floor, and he's walking really slow, and I'm like, I wonder what's up with this guy, right? So I follow him all the way in the line. He gets to the front line, puts the book on the table, looks me in the eye, and says, "Me too." And, I was looking for purpose. I was looking for direction, and that guy gave it to me that day. As I realized that by telling my own story, that I could help other people find their own voice, and help people who've had a similar experience such as mine, help them on a path of healing and self-discovery, and yeah. So the book was really a turning point in me sort of finding purpose and realizing that everything that I went through was part of a bigger plan and a bigger picture, and we haven't stopped since. It's 2017, and I've been to 220 Aboriginal communities all over Canada, speaking to youth and the elders, and really enjoying my time in the Aboriginal community. And I've done a lot of healing personally through Aboriginal spirituality in each and every community, participating in sweats and, powwows and drumming. And, I'm an honorary chief now at Siksika in Calgary, and I'm a pipe carrier. And so, yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And I'd have to say it all started with, the release of the book, and then the documentary came out shortly after that, and yeah. So, my daily life is filled with trying to improve the relationship that I have with myself first, and by doing that, it's allowed me to have some really cool relationships with, with other people who struggle every day with trauma, mental health, and addictions, and you know, it's such a top of mind topic now, and there's a lot more people willing to share and willing to talk about their experience, and are looking for healing. And you know, that's where I come in and share my experience of, you know, or suggest some of the things that I did that helped me change my own life.
Shortly after the book was released, you met with Winnipeg Police here and filed that formal complaint. I guess, is that something that you'll remember for forever?
You know what? Going into the experience, I was a little bit apprehensive. I was a little fearful and scared, but you know, that whole process of doing the interview and them asking me questions, I thought it was a really, they did all they could to, you know, create some safety and allow me to, you know, tell the story the best way that I could, and yeah, so it was a good experience. It wasn't one where it threw me for a loop or some things that I didn't expect to happen. They were very upfront and very honest, and you know, they made it pretty painless.
As well as speaking with people with mental health issues and trauma and addictions, you do a lot of speaking with people who have been incarcerated, people that are in jails. Why is that something that you like to do?
Well, you know, as I traveled and, you know, we're speaking to many different groups all over Canada, I realized that, you know, we were leaving a group out who probably need more help than, you know, than anybody, and you know, so I started to speak in prisons and you know, realized that trauma is at the core of, you know, why these guys are in there, and the only thing that separates me from them is I just didn't get caught, you know, and you know, the feelings of loneliness, sadness, emptiness, I know what that feels like, and so I relate to those guys on that level. But more importantly, I think they've taught me more about compassion than any group has on the planet, and you know, like I said, they've taught me more than I could ever teach them, and it's an amazing experience to go in there and see these guys and realize, you know, that even though they've did some things that had consequences attached to them, somewhere deep down they're looking for healing, and they're looking for ways to improve, you know, their lives. And you know, what's really cool is that a lot of the prisons have places that have healing lodges, sweat lodges, you know, and they're really sort of using the Aboriginal spiritual model to do some healing, and I'm all for that. I'm all about that, and yeah, like I said, it's one of my favorite things to do, and I leave with a lot of hope, you know, and I think that we lack that in society right now is hope, especially the way things are going. What we've seen in Vegas, you know, a few days ago, and even in Edmonton and our own country, you know, you realize that life is precious, and that there are a lot of people out there that are hurting, that you know, do things that cause a lot of damage and cause a lot of trauma. But at the end of the day, we can all heal, and you know, it's something that I stress in the Aboriginal community too, is to get back to the tools that were given to us by the grandfathers and the grandmothers, which is, you know, the smudge and the sweat lodge and the drumming and the powwow and the Sundance, and you know, that's part of who we are, and just because it was taken away from us for a while doesn't mean that we don't need to get back to it. And like I said, I've done all of my healing, spiritual healing, in the Aboriginal community, and it's been absolutely incredible and amazing.
Theo, I'm going to hold you there for another quick minute as we step aside for another quick break, but we'll be right back with more with Theo Fleury here on Face to Face. Welcome back to Face to Face. Our guest this week is Theo Fleury. And Theo, you also have a country music career, and just wondering how, we speak with a lot of people that music really helps with the healing process, and I wonder if that's been the case for yourself as well.
Yeah, there's no question. Well, if you know anything about Métis people, music is part of our DNA, My grandfather was a fiddle champion. My grandma was a champion jigger, and my dad was an entertainer. My uncle was an entertainer. So I grew up around country music, and was fortunate enough to have a friend here in Winnipeg, Phil DeChambeau, who's an incredible writer, producer, and he's from St. Lazare, where my dad was born. And so they played music together. Phil's dad and my dad played music together before we were even born. And so, I called Phil up and I said, hey, I need to stroke something off my bucket list. And I came here to Winnipeg and we wrote a song together, and, it turned out amazing. And then I just kept coming back here and we wrote a few more songs, and yeah, it's been an amazing process. It's very cathartic, and yeah, it was a fun project to do. And, Phil and I just wrote a song for the Madden football game that just came out, a couple months ago, and those are fun projects to do, and because of the stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis, which is really heavy and whatever, it's nice to be able to be creative musically, and to be able to write songs and take a thought, an idea, or a phrase and turn it into something really cool is a fun process.
And Theo, I hate to end it on a heavier note. We only got about a minute left here, but just what message do you have for those who are out there, and we know there are many of them that are dealing with trauma and mental health problems and addictions?
Yeah, well, I think you need to want it for yourself, and everybody thinks that asking for help means you're weak, when it actually means you're a person of courage and strength and all that. So, and how do you heal yourself? Well, you help people heal, and when you help people heal, you heal yourself, and that's something we talk about a lot in the Aboriginal communities. Is getting back to the old ways of spiritual teachings and spiritual healing and community, and how important that really is, and hopefully we can get back to that, because now it's an opportunity for us to heal as a nation, and it should happen now.
Theo, I wish we had more time with you, but an absolute pleasure, like I said, to have you on the show. Keep up the good work. And that is all the time we have for Face to Face this week. Our thanks again, Theo, for being part of this. And, of course, we'll be back again with more Face to Face next week.